Hi folks, and so we are going to be continuing to look at finding the area of polygons. Last time I was on here, we looked at finding the area of parallelograms, which that included regular parallelograms, rectangles, squares, and that formula was pretty easy. It was just the base times the height for all of those figures. So before we move on, away from quadrilaterals, I want to look at one other type of quadrilateral that's different than the ones we looked at last time. This is a trapezoid, and a trapezoid is different than a parallelogram because it does not have two sets of parallel sides. It only has one set, as you can see here, of parallel sides. The other two sides are not parallel. So to find the area of this, it's a little different. You don't just multiply the base times the height, and the reason for that is because the two bases here are different lengths usually. So they are not going to be the same. So the formula for this is a little different. Luckily, you don't need to memorize any of these formulas. All of the assessments you take are open notes and things like that. So you just have to make sure that you use the correct formula for the correct figure. So for parallelograms that we worked on last class, the area was equal to base times height. For a trapezoid, since there are two bases, there's a base up here, which I'll call base 1, and then there's a base down here, which I'll call base 2. Since there are two bases, the formula is a little different. Now, the easiest way to think about the formula is if we actually took another one of these trapezoids that was identical to this one, and if we placed it upside down next to that trapezoid there. Now what it forms is actually a parallelogram, okay? And for that parallelogram, the whole base is actually base 2, and then this is the length of that, base 1. So if we were going to find the area of this parallelogram here, we would need to get this long base, which we would get by adding base 2 plus base 1. And then we would multiply by whatever the height is, right? That's how we would find the area of that parallelogram I drew. So if we want to know what the area is of just the trapezoid, it's going to be half of the area of that parallelogram that I had drawn up there. So we would need to take this area and we would need to divide it by 2. So that's actually the formula for finding the area of a trapezoid. You add the two bases, the top one and the bottom one together, multiply by the height, and then divide by 2, okay? So it's a little bit of a more complicated formula, but like I said, you don't need to worry because you don't need to memorize it. You just need to be able to use it. If you have a trapezoid, you use that formula. So let's do a few examples. Let's say that base 1 was 8, and base 2 was 10, and the height was 3. And we'll say this is all inches. Okay? So to find the area then, if this base is 8 and the bigger base is 10 and the height is 3, to find the area, all you do is you add the bases, 8 plus 10, you multiply by the height, which is 3, and then at the end you have to divide by 2. Okay? So that's going to be 18 times 3, and then you divide by 2. Okay? And that will give you your final answer. And if you do that out, and don't be afraid, you can use the calculator if you want. Okay? And it should come out to 27. And since we're dealing with inches, the answer is in square inches. 27 square inches. Add the two bases, multiply by the height, divide by 2. Okay? So that's the formula. Okay, let's say we had a little bit of a different looking trapezoid here. Let's say maybe it looked up, kind of an upside down type of trapezoid. And don't worry, my drawings here are not the best. Okay, well, let's say that maybe this side was 5 inches and this side was 11 inches. And this height here of it was, let's say 4 inches. And you wanted to find the area of that trapezoid. Okay? So take a second and why don't you try that on your own. If you need to pause the video, and then we'll come back. Okay? So here you have your two bases, 11 and 5. So to find the area, we're going to add 11 plus 5, the two bases. We're going to multiply by the height, which is 4. And then we're going to divide by 2. So add the two bases, multiply by the height, divide by 2. Just follow the formula. Right? So that'll be 16 times 4 divided by 2. Okay? Do out the math. If you need a calculator, don't be afraid. And you should get 32. And then since we're dealing with inches, it's square inches. 32 square inches inside that trapezoid. Okay? All right, so that's it. So area of a trapezoid, it's a different formula than a parallelogram and all those types of parallelograms we looked at yesterday, but you just follow the formula. Okay? And it doesn't matter which way the trapezoid is orientated. So maybe you have the trapezoid turn on its side like this, something like that. It isn't going to matter. Okay? Say we call that this is 13 inches and this is 7 inches and then the height is 5 inches. It doesn't matter if it's orientated differently. All right, you still use the same formula. You still consider these two, the two parallel sides are the bases, and then the height is how long it is between those bases, how high it is between those bases. So it doesn't matter if the orientation is flipped. So for this one here, you would still add the bases, 13 plus 7, multiply by the height, which in this case is kind of a width since it's turned on its side, and divide by 2. Period. Okay? And so then that area would come out to be, so that'd be 20 times 5 and divided by 2, which is going to come out to 50. And if we're still talking about inches, square inches. Okay? So we talked about parallelograms last time. Now we're still talking about quadrilaterals, four-sided figure, but it's a little different four-sided figure. It's a trapezoid. It only has one pair of parallel sides. All right, so when you have a trapezoid, you need a little different formula since it has two different bases. You add the two different bases, which are the parallel sides, add them together, multiply by the height or the width between those parallel sides, and then divide it by 2. Okay? So we'll get some practice on that the next couple days, and then later in the week we'll be moving to finding the area of triangles. Okay? Have a great day.